There are a lot of dishes that we know of in America that really you won't find in Italy at all. And a lot of dishes that we maybe call it, like chicken cacciatore, that the dish won't be the same once you go to Italy, and if you can find the region that it's in. So as you go from region to region, foods are called different things. The people have their own dialect. Now they all speak Italian, but 100 years ago that wasn't, even 50 years ago that wasn't true. I can still go to really remote areas and talk to little old ladies, and they only speak their dialect, and they can't converse with me speaking the Italian language, which is really odd because we have a tendency to think, oh, it's Italian. But they relate to their own little town and their own little dialect. They each region has its own saint days. It has its own foods that they celebrate. Have you guys heard of the Feast of the Seven Fishes? Right? Okay, well, that's not Italian. It's Napolitano. That's one city from the city of Naples. The spaghetti and meatballs, not Italian. They would never put meat on top of a big dish of pasta. Pasta is served before the meat. So they cook the meatballs in the sauce, and then they eat the spaghetti with the red sauce, and then the meatballs are served after you've eaten the pasta. Then the meat course comes. You eat the meat with vegetables and salad. Oregano, right? Italian dressing has got oregano in it. You guys anybody ever make spaghetti sauce? Anybody make spaghetti sauce? And who's got a recipe that calls for oregano in that spaghetti sauce, right? It's not Italian. Oregano is a Greek herb or a Mexican herb. They do have it planted. I mean, it does grow in southern Italy. The southern Italians, in Naples, for sure, you have to put oregano on your pizza, a traditional pizza from Naples. Nowhere in any region in Italy do you find oregano put into a red sauce for pasta. So those are just some of the things that, and you have to understand and I know we're all from all different places. And where our ancestors came from, they weren't able to bring their own food. Sometimes, for instance, the big influx of Italian immigrants into America happened about 100 years ago. Well, these weren't young chefs that wanted to come to America to cook free. They were just people looking for a better way of life. And a lot of times they had never cooked. They were young men that didn't cook. They knew what their mother cooked, but they didn't know how it was done. Or if they were young women or adult women, they knew how to cook, but they couldn't get the ingredients. And then you start mixing in the neighborhood. You got an Italian neighborhood, but you got a Sicilian family living next to a Napolitano family living next to somebody from the Veneto. And they all start exchanging recipes. And over 100 years, you know, the food that we really know of as Italian, many times when you go to Italy, is very, very different from what you expect. Now, the country of Italy, when you start in the north, there's the Alps, which borders Switzerland and Austria and France. And the foothills of the Alps are just really great air for growing cows. So they have a lot of cows in northern Italy. They drive them up into the mountains and they eat in the in the mountains and the big pasture lands, and then they come down in the winter time and stay in the pastures in the south. So they have a lot of cows. They just grow really well. Hence they have a lot of dairy product and they have a lot of beef. Most of the beef dishes that we consider Italian are going to come from northern Italy. And because they have so much dairy cow, they have a lot of cow's milk for cheese. So most of the cheeses from the north are cow's milk. Now, you can make cheese out of 3 different things. Well, maybe more than that. I think I heard about rice cheese last week, which sounds gross. But cow's milk, sheep's milk, or goat's milk, those 3 things. In the northern part of Italy, we do a lot of cow's milk because that's we have cows. So because of that, you use butter for your cooking because you have the butter. You use cream for the dishes, and it's just a richer diet, okay? So you guys have heard of Parmigiano, Gorgonzola, Asiago, Fontina. Those are real traditional, very common Italian cheeses, all cow's milk cheese from the north, right? When you come into Tuscany, which is where Banfi is and which is where I live, we have a lot of sheep. And as you drive around, you can see just herds and herds of sheep. And we've always used that land to graze sheep. So we have pecorino. You guys have heard of pecorino romano? Pecorino romano, pecorino just means it's sheep's milk cheese. In Italian, pecora is sheep, so pecorino is sheep's milk. So pecorino romano comes from Rome, and it's very strong and salty. The pecorino toscano, and in this country, if you want to find pecorino from Tuscany, you have to say pecorino toscano. There's a whole bunch of different ways. It's aged, it's fresh. But if you come to Tuscany and you have cheese, it's going to be pecorino toscano. And then the southern part of Italy is where mozzarella comes from. A couple thousand years ago, they brought buffaloes water buffaloes from Africa, and they're practically indigenous. They've been there for so long, and they make the mozzarella from buffalo milk. Now, if you're in southern Italy where they make mozzarella and you say you want mozzarella, it's going to be buffalo milk because that is what it is. If you want cow's milk mozzarella, which is what we get in this country it'll say mozzarella di bufala. Have you guys heard of that? I mean, I don't know how much you get out, but and I know Philadelphia's got that big the big market, you know, the Italian. I was just down there yesterday. What is it, 9th Street? The Italian section. If you go there and you buy a ball of mozzarella, and they make a beautiful one fresh there on the corner, Claudio's, I think it is, that's going to be cow's milk because that's what it is in this country. But if you go to southern Italy and you ask for mozzarella, it'll always be buffalo milk. How do they taste differently? One, buffalo milk's just a little bit more acidic, but it's considered more precious, and so it's more expensive. Personally, I prefer the cow. So when you're down in southern Italy, if you want cow's milk mozzarella, you have to ask for fior di latte, which means flower of milk. So it's just these little things. You know, I've been over there for 11 years. I've been studying Italian food my entire life, and it's you know, it's complicated and it's difficult to get to the bottom of it because Italians are very, very, they're very opinionated about their food. And the way I've learned Italian food is not only working with chefs, but mostly working with the little old ladies that are in the kitchen. I want to talk to the people that learned from their grandmas and great-grandmas about the way food used to be and how it's changed and what they do and why they do it. And then sitting at table, you talk to the little old men, because if the little old men aren't in the kitchen, they've got an opinion and they want to tell you the best way to do it. And what's really fun is when you get the little old lady and the little old man at the table together and they start arguing, because he's never been in the kitchen, but he has an opinion, and that's always kind of fun.